My guest today is Felix Xu. Felix is the co-founder of ARPA Network and the Bella Protocol. He's also an NFT collector. We'll talk about all of these things today. Welcome to the show, Felix.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's my honor to be on the show.
Hey, it's my honor to have you on the show, Felix. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. It would be great if you could please introduce yourself. I'd love to hear a little bit of your personal and professional story, what you've been doing in the lead up, I suppose, to co-founding ARPA Network and the Bella Protocol. And yeah, what's some of your story, man?
Sure. I got into the space in 2017. I bought Bitcoin ETH back in late 2017. And I actually got to know Bitcoin quite early because during college back in 2011, I actually went to New York University for information systems and finance majors. And one of my professors at Infotech class, he mentioned about Bitcoin, and actually he gifted every one of his students Bitcoin back in 2011. So that was the first time I heard about Bitcoin, but unfortunately, I lost, the seed phrase for that wallet. So yeah, like and then in 2017, I finally read about Bitcoin white paper, and I was thrilled because I also read a book called The Sovereign Individual, which is, a lot of people say is kind of the inspiration for Bitcoin. So immediately I found a lot of similarities. And as a Chinese citizen, it's very hard to move money around, right? It's very hard to convert Chinese RMB into any other currencies, right? So there's capital control. So that was the time that I realized, how great the Bitcoin is as an invention and how great it is to grant personal freedom for individuals. So that was the moment I wanted to get into the industry. And in early 2018, I quit my job to co-found ARPA Network. So we have been working on cryptography and especially threshold signature schemes, as specific cryptographic algorithms and its use cases since 2018. So that's my brief summary.
Yeah, well, look, fantastic. And look, Felix, just before we jump into the ARPA network and yeah, I guess one of your first products, we can talk about that. I think that is called Randcast, so we'll talk about that. But fascinating that, that number one, you were gifted some Bitcoin in 2011, did you say, by a university lecturer or professor or whatever. And I wonder if any of your classmates from then were also smart enough or diligent enough to hold on to the seed phrases, because yeah, that was very early. And so it doesn't really matter how much Bitcoin your professor gave those students in 2011, it would be worth something today, wouldn't it?
For sure. I actually went back to New York 2 weeks ago and after East Denver, and I talked to some of my friends back in college. I don't think any one of them still have the wallet, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's very,
Like
very early.
yeah, during the class, it was like a homework. It's a task that the professor asked each one of us to set up the wallet. So after the class finished, right after the end of the semester, nobody really talked about it. Nobody really remember it. And after so many years, I highly doubt anyone still held on to it.
Mm. Just look, the sovereign individual is another fascinating data point, I guess, and it's it's a reasonably popular book within certain circles, in libertarian circles, certainly in crypto circles, and obviously there's some crossover between, I guess, libertarian philosophy and cryptocurrency philosophy as well, if you like. Do you think the sovereign individual, it's obviously very relevant today? I think, considering it was written, I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry now. It was published in 1997 by William Rees Mogg and James Dale Davidson, but it did go on to kind of talk about the rise of internet, different kind of networks, cyberspace, self-ownership, decentralization, and of course, digital currency. Very early to touch on all these things, wasn't it, Felix?
Of course. I think it is definitely like very inspiring to read that book. Yeah, like when I first stepped into the crypto space. I think it's still very relevant, and it's going to be more and more relevant given how AI is shaping the industry, the whole society. You have AI agents that can do a lot of things for us. One day, are they going to be recognized as citizens, right? As citizens of any network state. And then if like the existing financial systems are gonna accept these AI agents who are essentially having a lot of productivity than normal people, and at some points, right, they will be treated as individuals instead of as softwares. Yeah, so to me, I feel like cryptocurrency is one step for as the financial instrument, but going forward, a lot of different technologies will cross the road, and then will fulfill like the ultimate vision of sovereign individual.
Yeah, very much so, and it certainly does feel like in the last decade or so, the world has accelerated in terms of some of those trends. So yeah, it's a fascinating time to be alive. Maybe we'll talk about that more later in the show. Let's bring it back to the ARPA network and what you and your team are working on there. So do you want to just give us a kind of a high level summary of what the ARPA network is, who's involved, origin story if you like, and then we'll talk about Randcast as well following that.
Of course. Yeah, so we started ARPA Network in April 2018. That was the time I quitted my job. I have 3 co-founders. One, we went to the same high school. Our chief cryptographer, he got PhD in Tsinghua University for cryptography. So he's a very smart guy. We have our CTO, our chief growth officer, who used to work at Fidelity and also had his startup, very successful startup. After he exited, he went back to China to join force with me from Chicago. And he also brought in his undergrad roommate, his best friend during college. Later on, that's our CTO. So the 4 of us have known each other for years, and we have been working on ARPA Network and also Bella Protocol for the past 6 years. It's a very stable team. We have more than 20 people, and right now our focus is still the same with the very beginning, right? So we try to apply cryptographic technologies into blockchain, right, to expand the features and expand the capabilities of blockchain. So think of ARPA network as a decentralized cryptographic algorithms network. And we can provide, for example, verifiable random numbers to different blockchains, right? It's a blockchain agnostic. And using our decentralized group of nodes, we can cryptographically prove the fairness and the randomness. That is just one of the use cases. We are exploring new use cases like decentralized bridges, wallets, smart wallets, and also a lot of the applications on ZKML, right? So zero knowledge machine learning. That is the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of cryptographic algorithms plus machine learning. And we try to provide privacy preserving machine learning techniques for data on chain. It's still in brewing, but what we have been doing is basically try to adapt cryptography to expand blockchain capability.
Got it. Thank you, Felix. And so, yeah, Randcast it's essentially the first product to come out of the ARPA network, right? And when people hear that it is an on-chain verifiable random number generation service, depending on how far into the weeds I suppose you are in blockchain, that makes either a lot of sense or it doesn't make much sense at all. But it's actually a very important and valuable tool for developers to have access to. So maybe do you want to just explain why that is the case, and then we can talk about some of the different use cases that are effectively enables, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course. So Randcast is currently the flagship product that we have on top of ARPA Network. It generates random numbers that can be verified on chain, right? So, like speaking of like the random numbers, there are a lot of use cases. For now, blockchain is predominantly DeFi, and DeFi is mostly deterministic. However, if you talk about like games, entertainment, lottery, gambling, so anything that with probability, then you face the problem of choosing a winner, right? And you want that process, that selection process, to be as fair and as random as possible. So in the physical world, right, true randomness only exists in the physical world, right? You can do like a lava lamp, right? Or you can detect the noise in the atmosphere. That is how you get true randomness. Anything that's generated by computer, right? So that anything is compute using an algorithm is pseudo randomness, right? So it's the same for us, right? So for us, it's also pseudo randomness. But the thing is, we can use threshold signature scheme or threshold cryptography to make that process of randomness generation to be verifiable, right? We can make sure that the algorithms is run with integrity. That's why we can basically guarantee the fairness for the random numbers.
Yeah, and so let's dig into some of those use cases. So you mentioned, I think, likes of gambling, gaming, lottery tickets, things like that. And when you talk about, one of the predominant use cases for blockchain at the moment being DeFi, so in other words, finance, and finance is one part of what we humans have to deal with. We have to manage our finances, sure, but another part of, I guess, the human experience is something like gaming or gambling. These are big parts of the human experience for certain sectors of the population. Think of gaming as one of the largest industries on the planet. So talk to us then about, Felix, how it's really important to be able to achieve true randomness, if you like, in kind of different gaming scenarios, and why that works for blockchain gaming.
Of course. Um, I would say that blockchain gaming is still at the very beginning
Mm.
of existence, right? So you might have heard of X Infinity, Step N, or some other, that's what I call like Web 2.5 games. And there's a small group of developers or game studios that are working on fully on-chain game that try to do everything on-chain. Uh, Actually, yesterday we published our first fully on-chain game. It's called Dear, DEAR, and we can talk about that later. But it's a fully on-chain game. We spend a lot of effort to craft it out with artists and with a lot of the innovative mechanisms. But back to Randcast. So yeah, like in the traditional games, right? So for example, traditional lottery, traditional casino, if the stake is big enough, then people will try to manipulate who's the winner. And that happens everywhere. That's like essentially why people want to bring on-chain, right? So that it's more fair, and also everything should be transparent. So you remove the single point of failure of to store the money, right? To store the money instead of using a custodian bank or custodian entity, you store it in the smart contract of blockchain, right? It's the same thing for random number generation, right? So in the past, it's a black box. You can manipulate it. The creator of that platform can manipulate it. And now, if you do it using Randcast, then we can guarantee the integrity of the algorithms, and we can guarantee the fairness for the randomness, right? So it's basically removing a single point of failure of selecting the winner. And I think that's a huge value add if we think about how big the entertainment industry, how big is the gambling, casino, gaming industry in the world. And as long as a fraction of them are moving on chain, then our service will be very crucial for all these platforms.
Yeah, tell us, Felix. There's a number of different projects across, I suppose, the crypto industry that are working on this or effectively provide this for other developers. Chainlink is probably the best known one. I think Sui do this as well, and there's you guys. Maybe there's others as well. Yeah, is that the kind of what does that competitor landscape look like, if you like?
Mm-hmm. Our biggest, the leading competitor would be Chainlink VRF, right? So verifiable randomness function, right? VRF. So the difference between Chainlink VRF and ARPA Randcast is the algorithm, right? So Chainlink use VRF algorithms, and we use threshold signature schemes. So threshold cryptography basically is using a group of nodes, right? So each random number generation, we use 5 or 10 nodes together. And you must reach a certain threshold to be able to generate the randomness to get the random number together. So the whole generation process is cryptographically verifiable. The difference between Randcast and VRF is that VRF is still using one single node to generate the random number and is prone to abort attack. Basically, the node can abort until they have to cherry pick the result. They can have the desirable result. But for Randcast, because it's generated by a group of nodes and it must reach a certain threshold, so it's harder to manipulate half of the group, right? Because we use a honest majority assumption, security assumption. However, it's much harder for one or two nodes to try to manipulate the whole result.
Got it. Makes sense. Well, it sounds like you're well positioned against Chainlink's offering then. You talked
Also,
about, sorry.
to add on that, like that is on the security side, but also on the developer experience side. We interviewed a lot of Chainlink VRF users and tried to find out their pain points when we were building ARPA Randcast. For example, we have a set of consumer smart contract examples. Basically, people can just copy paste some common practices, right? If they try to build a casino, if they try to build a game, then it's very easy to use our service plus our templates. In that sense, and we also have like gas estimation, subscription portal, etc. So like basically we built the whole product around developer experience to provide the best service and experience for game studios.
Got it. If we, bring it back to games, Felix, you spoke a little bit earlier about Project Deer, I think, which is, I guess, this is something that you guys are working on. Tell us about Project Deer.
Sure. It's a ARPA ecosystem project, and it uses ARPA Randcast to generate a random seed. Yeah, you can test it out yourself. The website is dear.game. It's actually a mobile fully on-chain game, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but basically it's a tug of war, right? So think about there are think about you are playing with one digital creator or digital companion, and there are two factions of of players, right? So everyone is playing with one single pet, but you have two factions because you can feed the pet, feed the deer, the animal deer, or you can abuse the deer, or you can stay with the deer. And every given time, there's only one address that can stay with the deer among all the players. And basically, we want to test it out how people treat the digital creator, and then we want to see the result of it, right? So it's a finite game, it's a tug of war, and it has a lot of what we call modding of token contract. basically we can do double spending token. So we believe that when you feed or abuse the deer, you can get some emotion tokens, like you can get love token, hatred token, and you can spread it by sending to other addresses, double spending, right? So both address will get more of that emotion. And if you have love and hatred token in your wallet, they cancel out each other, right? So that is something that we think is the first to the market. Double spending, cancel out, and basically the whole game is a finite game, only lasts for 2 weeks. So if everyone abuses the deer actually dies faster. And basically, like we try to see the result. If there's a balanced result, if the deer just died, or if everyone's taking care of the deer. So it's experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like some interesting game theory involved there as well. Look, I'd love to get your thoughts just on maybe if we go a bit wider, Felix, and just, in terms of what is happening with maybe Web3 gaming, your current take on NFTs, I suppose, because it's kind of an interesting time. Obviously, we had the last Web3 NFT cycle in 2021, massive bull market there, and then followed by the bear market. Of course, almost 3 years later now, really in 2024, it feels like the crypto bull market is returning, but it's a little bit different in that this time it's obviously led by Bitcoin. Certainly altcoins will follow as well, but there's certainly NFTs are yet to recover. Or there's another way of thinking about that is maybe we don't quite have the catalyst for the next wave of mainstream users to come back to Web3 or NFTs or Web3 gaming. But maybe that's changing. So love to just dive in any way you want, and Felix, and tell us what you see happening at the moment.
Yeah, I do have a mixed feeling about NFT, to be honest. 3 years ago, actually like 2.5 years ago, I was lucky enough to get featured on Wall Street Journal and New York Times for my opinions on NFTs, right? So back then, I was really I still very bullish on generative art, because I think it lives like exclusively on blockchain, right? So without blockchain, there's no meaning for generative art, because it's just code, right? And then blockchain gives the uniqueness for all these generative art, because it's limited editions, right? You have provable randomness that generates each of these images, and it lives within the smart contract, which means it lives forever. So I'm still bullish on generative art. I think a lot of the PFPs, it really depends on the community. So what we have been seeing in Pudgy Penguin or Bored Ape Yacht Club, it's basically driven by the sentiment of the community and how the team is delivering some of the milestones. But to be honest, I feel like every cycle is very different. If we look at 2017, 2016, the top coins, how many of them still, in the top 10 list? Very few, right? So every cycle is different. People tastes are different. I think like maybe this cycle we can get some interesting NFTs on Bitcoin ordinals. So that's why I don't really have a view on Ethereum NFTs, especially on PFPs.
Yeah, very diplomatically said. And reading between the lines, Felix, I would have to say that I have similar views, I think. But I mean, that's well articulated in terms of you're exactly right, and that each cycle is different. It's a great analogy if we think back to the 2017 bull market, the top 10 coins then, very different. Bitcoin and Ethereum still number one and number two, but anything else from the top 10 back in 2017 gone effectively. So that's a great way of thinking about it. And of course, ordinals, yeah, you're exactly right. Funny how the pendulum has kind of shifted from Ethereum NFTs and Ethereum DeFi back to, Bitcoin layer twos and Bitcoin ordinals now. So very interesting. But I guess as we finish up this part of the podcast, Felix, just for anyone listening, especially developers that want to make use of Randcast, tell them where they should go and what they should do to dig into what you guys are doing with ARPA. And look, I said at the start of the show, Bella Protocol. We haven't even talked about Bella Protocol, but I know that's DeFi. So maybe just do the ARPA stuff and then, tell us a little bit about Bella as well before we go to the break.
Sure. ARPA, you guys can check out ARPA Randcast at arpanetwork.io dash Randcast, Randcast, Randcast. And then, it's permissionless. Anyone can use it. It's actually very, easy to integrate in your game. So that's ARPA. And for Bella Protocol, the flagship product is a LP farm. Basically, we can help to do like DeFi yield aggregator on different chains, including ZK Sync, Mental, Manta, and some other chains as well. Right, so we partner up with DEXs, and then we provide the best yield on that chain, basically. And also check out our new game. It's Dear.game, DEAR.game, and it's I would say the music is great. We one of our developer actually created the music. The art is created by two artists. I collected a lot of NFTs from those two artists. That's why we work together. And we have some innovative mechanisms to explore.
And just while you're, we talked about Ethereum NFTs. What about DeFi? What's, what's your thoughts on DeFi at the moment, Felix?
PointsFi. Everyone is doing points. I mean, like I have been farming a lot on Eigenlayer, and also all these like LRTs, including Renzo, Puffer, EtherFi, a lot of them, right? So I like Whale's market because it led me to trade the points, and I also like Pendo or Gearbox that can leverage up, right, to basically like trade the points, or you can get stable APY on your ETH. Right, so I think those are very interesting, but in general, I think points are kind of a step back, right? So basically, like, why do we need crypto? Because we don't want these points, right? Your US dollar in the bank account is a point, right? So, yeah, like I mean, like I still prefer the good old crypto, but just because it's tradable and there's a lot of like farming, like selling pressure. Nowadays, like everyone switched to points.
Yeah, very well said. Again, very well said. Again, thank you, Felix. All right, well, look, I think what we'll do now is we'll go to a very quick break and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll finish off by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Back in 1 second. And boom, we are back. And I'm with Felix Xu. Felix is the co-founder at ARPA Network and the Bella Protocol. And yeah, the Dear game, which sounds interesting, looks interesting. Links, of course, in the show notes to all of these listeners. But Felix, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Sure.
All right, I'm just going to run some questions at you, Felix. Just want you to give me your honest answers, hot take style, if you like. No right or wrong way to do it. Question one for you. Felix, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I'm more ETH maxi, but I still hold some Bitcoin and Sol and some other altcoins. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense. What would you say then is your firmest conviction crypto opinion, Felix?
I think that crypto is going to take over the world. I think Bitcoin is going to be the best store of value of our generation, and Ethereum and other, basically smart contract platforms will be running the majority of DeFi, the majority of finance flow by the end of this, by the end of our lifetime.
I love it. I love it. Very, very nice. All right, here's a tricky one. What would you say is the most contrarian take from the sovereign individual that is proving true or will prove true?
That is a tough question. I remember like in the sovereign individual, there's a statement saying that smaller countries are more keen on attracting all these sovereign individuals.
Mm.
Um, I have to say I partially agree and partially disagree because as you can see, like Singapore, countries like Singapore, and they are very aggressive on taking in talents from overseas, right? Um, However, like smaller countries, they are not necessarily to have less surveillance on individuals, right? So they, like countries like Singapore, they try to control everything. Like even though they're a small country, they try to acquire talents, but they are, basically the government is quite control freak. So, uh, I feel like to be a sovereign individual is like basically you cannot bank on any government, right? You have to bank on yourself, and crypto is the best path, to the sovereign individual.
Yep. Very well said. All right. Well, look, Felix, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. As a blockchain builder, you'll be very familiar with that kind of thinking. But cast your mind forward 10 years' time. It's a long time in blockchain, but, whatever you like, DeFi, Web3, Ethereum, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
Mm. That is a tough question. I know what's gonna still exist in 10 years is the cyclicality of crypto price, right? So the crypto market is the financial market, and it always fluctuate up and down, like the tide. So I think that will not go away anytime soon. However, actually, like now I feel like the blockchain technology is not going to evolve very fast, because if we look at AI technology, right, in the past 10 years, it basically disrupted a lot, over the past 10 years. 10 years ago, people were talking about computer vision, and now people are talking about large language model. And back in the days, people don't think that all these models can do things that with creativity, right? So I think, like, to me, blockchain is more a sociology than a technology. It is definitely like enabled by cryptography and decentralization, computing power. However, it tried to basically like change how people work together, right? Change how people collaborate together, change how people trust. So it is so that's why it actually evolves slower than typical technology, like what we have seen in the internet, right? Computer, personal computer, and AI. However, that, like, because of that, right? Um, it is very hard to go back, once people adopt crypto, once people embrace the concept of decentralization, it is very hard to go back to their original, like where they came from. So I think 10 years, it's a long time. Um, we'll probably see a lot of like finance applications, finance flow to be put on chain. A lot of the countries, they will probably have digital currency that move on chain. However, I think it still takes a long time, probably more than 10 years, as we see the whole Web3 as a buzzword, how that can come to reality, how everything can be stored on chain, how we can monetize our data, etc. So I think that will probably take longer.
Yes, indeed. Very much agree. Thank you, Felix. William Gibson famously said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, Felix, but most people aren't aware of it?
Bitcoin ETF, Bitcoin spot ETF was approved just 2 months ago, right? And Ethereum ETF or some other altcoin ETF is not even approved. So the future is here, right? The future is how we hold, our crypto, and the majority of other people don't realize it, how valuable it is. So the future is here.
Yep, I like it. All right,
let's
yeah. Let's finish this off, Felix. The final question is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Okay. Yeah, I would have to say it's by a Chinese author called Liu Cixin, and the book is called The Three Body Problem. It's a trilogy, and it's actually Netflix is doing a TV series for that book. Yeah, it means a lot to me.
Yeah, fantastic. Would you believe, Felix, that, I've done over 400 episodes of this podcast, and I've asked this question to 400 different people. Admittedly, they are crypto people, but probably there's two most popular answers to that question are the Matrix and number two, the three body problem. Which is amazing, really, for a kind of semi-obscure Chinese language written novel. Obviously, it's been translated, but yeah, popular enough that as you've pointed out, yeah, the Netflix show I believe it begins on March 29. It's only a couple of weeks away. Of course, it's being made by the Game of Thrones producers, showrunners, so that's going to be incredible. I'm looking forward to it, Felix.
Sure. Actually, I thought about Matrix when you first asked the question. I was like, should I say Matrix? And I was like, maybe it's too common. Maybe it's too common. Because I always use Matrix as a analogy for crypto, because you see like a lot of in the Matrix book or film, majority of the people, they live in the Matrix. It's comfortable, right? It's basically what we have right now. And just a small fraction of people choose to live in Zion. It is the same thing with crypto, right? So imagine how many people are actually using the wallets, are actually using DeFi, are actually using anything on chain. Very small amount, right? But you have more than, I don't know the exact number, but maybe like 300 million people that actually own crypto in centralized exchanges. Centralized exchanges are like Matrix, right? You trade comfortably there. And everything on chain is just like very hard to use, right? So it's like Zion.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's a great way of putting it. And, the other thing that's great about the Matrix, of course, is that it kind of popularized what we now call simulation theory, So, yeah.
Yeah, we have a bigger matrix, which is the Bitcoin spot ETF. Cash settlement.
Indeed.
You can't have your coin.
Oh, look, hey, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us today, Felix. Really enjoyed talking to you. Again, just close it out by telling people where they can find you online, what your X handle is, and again, just run through the different websites for Dear, ARPA, Bella, and so on.
Sure. My X handle is Felix MXU. And the ARPA website is ARPA Network, ARPA network.io. And you can find information on Randcast, how to integrate and examples. And for Bella protocol is a yield aggregator, and you can check it out on bella.fi.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Felix. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, there you go. That was Felix from ARPA working on Randcast and the Dear game, and yeah, Bella Protocol. Interesting. And look, how good was it that Felix is another guest to choose the three body problem? I mean, I've said it so many times. When Brett, aka Ela Herf, was on the show only about 2-3 episodes ago, and we spent half of that episode talking about the three-body problem. And there you go. Here it is again. And as I say, yeah, I think that Netflix adaptation begins end of this month. So that's going to be the sci-fi event of the year, I think. Unless, maybe the sci-fi event of the year was, in fact, June 2. I mean, yeah, obviously the 2 June movies, but June 2, absolutely incredible, spectacular film. Must be seen on the big screen, but yeah, incredible. So, yeah, look, Bitcoin spot ETFs are live, Bitcoin all-time highs, June 2 in cinemas, and the three-body problem coming to Netflix. What a time to be alive, folks. Yes, indeed. All right, we reached the end of another show. Please subscribe to the show. Stay listening to the show next time. But that is the end of today's show. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See you.